breaking news from RTV6.
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Todd Connor. We thank you for joining us on HTSN and our RTV6 app. City leaders and the Fraternal Order of Police are meeting right now to discuss officer safety and the challenges the police face on the streets of Indianapolis. It follows the shooting death of Officer Perry Wren on Saturday night. Let's take you there live right now. That's Director of Public Safety, Troy Riggs.
The challenges we face as a Department of Public Safety, and specifically the Indianapolis Metro Police Department. Let me just say, to begin with, we have 3,200 employees within the Department of Public Safety. They come to work each and every day with one goal in mind, and that's to provide safety for the citizens of this community. As a Director of Public Safety, it's my responsibility to provide the best services that we can offer as a city. It's a daunting task. 3,200 people, 85% of the city budget goes to public safety. The police department is the largest budget in that within Department of Public Safety. But I do want to make this clear. As we come to work, my main responsibility is to the citizens of this community, but also have a second responsibility that we don't talk about as much, and that's making sure that our police officers, firefighters, EMS are equipped and they have the equipment needed and the personnel needed to do their job. I also have to say that it's my responsibility to look over their safety and bring attention to issues that we are seeing developing that not only causes safety issues for our community, but for those protecting our community within IMPD. I want to share some sobering statistics with you. In the last 18 months, 8 police officers have been shot. 8. 2 of them received fatal injuries. We believe that 22 other police officers were fired upon. 8 police officers shot, 22 additional fired upon 30 different incidents. 22 officers were assaulted with other weapons, including firearms, knives, any type of weapon can be used against a police officer in 2013. In the first 4 months of this year, we have already had 21 officers assaulted. And so far this year, we've had 56 injuries to police officers. Each and every day, police officers put their lives on the line. Today, we have heavy heart for the loss of an officer. And during this time, we need to remember his sacrifice and the sacrifice that our men and women make each and every day and the danger that they put themselves in each and every day. Today, we're unified in our message that the IMPD will not shirk from its responsibility. The IMPD will not be intimidated by those who perpetrate crime in our community and will continue to support the public. We simply want to bring this to your attention and ask for the citizens to assist. We know that there have been many incidents where officers have been engaged in deadly confrontations or potentially deadly confrontations where someone in the community saw something early on. Maybe it was someone being pushed out of a bar that was having an argument, people hearing an argument escalate as they're walking down the street. Whatever it is, people should pick up their cell phone and call the police and let us know. You may be saving an officer's life, and you may be saving the life of an individual in our community. We know that that is an issue. We also know that out of the individuals that have been shot this year in our community, 60% of them have refused to cooperate with their police department. We believe there's numerous reasons for this. One, they fear retribution, and we certainly understand that since we do not have mandatory minimum sentencing for individuals that use a weapon in a violent crime in the state of Indiana. We need to do better, and we will continue to push this. The mayor and I and Chief Hite will continue to move that forward. We will take some questions in a moment, but at this time I want to introduce the president of the FOP, President Owensby, for a few remarks.
Good afternoon. For those of you that came expecting to hear the FOP's over 2-year message about manpower and allocation and resources, you're not going to be disappointed. We are going to talk about that. But as the director said, we are all, as a collective public safety body, concerned about the state of this community. the state of the criminal justice system. And this is not designed in any way, shape, or form to point fingers or blame or any of that. But we have got to look at the way we do business. We have got to change the way we do business. And as the director alluded to, mandatory minimum sentencing, I want everyone to be clear that the FOP is solidly behind that plan. We will do everything within our power to work with the Department of Public Safety and our legislators to enact laws and to convince the lawmakers and judges to enforce the current laws. As the director alluded to, our data shows that if we had a 10-year minimum sentencing guideline for serious felons that use a firearm in the commission of their act, we would not have encountered 15 to 20 of our homicide suspects because they still would have been in prison. That is a very sobering fact. It's no secret that there were issues with the suspect that murdered David Moore in his criminal history. The suspect that murdered Rod Bradway had a flowery criminal history. The suspect that murdered Perry Wren has a flowery criminal history. Something has got to change, and we've got to stop looking at bed spaces as something to bargain out. If someone commits a crime that is serious enough and they use a weapon, they have got to pay the price for that. It isn't just law enforcement that benefits from that. It's the entire community. When you look at what happened Saturday night, the act that was committed, the murder of that officer, could have also included 3 other victims or 4 other victims as their house was shot up. A mother and 2 kids in their house had their house shot up by this suspect as he was firing at the police officers. We're not talking about just police officers that are suffering harm here. Although those statistics are sobering, the amount of officers that are being assaulted, I've not seen in my 32 years in these amount of numbers. These numbers, they're scary, very scary. And our men and women yet every single day put their uniforms on and go out there and run toward danger and not know if they're going to come. They don't know if they're going to come home that night or that day. We can't be asked or tasked with arresting and rearresting and rearresting the same people. There has got to be change. The time, and everyone knows, we've had this message for a number of years about staffing and that. It's time to stop talking about it. This isn't a problem that you can snap your fingers and fix. This takes time to correct, and we've got to start now making positive, certain progress to get this train rolling down the track. With that, I would like to introduce Vice President Snyder, who will, again, discuss the state of the department, the state and the state of our officers, and give you some additional information.
Thank you. I first want to thank Director Riggs, Chief Hite, and your staff for reaching out to us and working with us on these very troubling issues. Suffice it to say, our city is at a major crossroads, and it is time for our community to start making some tough decisions. We really only have 2 options here. We are at a point in our police department where we can no longer continue to provide the level of services that our city has grown accustomed to without the resources to support that. Our Chief of Police very passionately, and I would say also bravely, came forward to the IMPD Staffing Commission and didn't sugarcoat the situation that we're in right now. And during that time, the Chief his staff, the Department of Public Safety, and the FOP made a clear and convincing position that we are hundreds of police officers short here in the IMPD. We are now seeing the ripple effects of what occurs when we don't have the resources to combat crime, especially in its beginning stages, and we then start to spiral out of control. The chief also rightly said yesterday morning, it is not just our police department that is under attack. Our city is under attack, and we're being terrorized by the criminal element. And we can talk all day long and we can debate whether or not more cops means less crime, but what I could suggest to you is I can't find anyone that at this stage of the game suggests that we should have less police than what we have now. But unless something changes, that's exactly what is going to happen. We are on pace to lose nearly 50 to 100 more officers before the current class graduates and is out on the street serving this community. The only certainty that we have right now is that we will continue to lose officers due to normal attrition or being critically injured or dying in the line of duty. With that being said, a plan has been put forward with respect to what the leaders of your police department have told this community that they need to be successful. And that plan is a strategic plan to hire hundreds of officers over the next 5 years. And it also explains how that has to be funded. So again, we sit at this crossroads, and our community needs to make the decision. Are we willing to invest in our own safety to stand the line and stop what is occurring in our community? Or are we going to pull back, bury our heads in the sand, and hope that this goes away? I can assure you it is not. Evil does follow the path of least resistance. Criminals follow the path of least resistance. It is no secret that Indianapolis is in a weakened, compromised position right now when it comes to public safety. That is why we're seeing criminals from all over the country, other states, other cities, coming here to do their business. And here's the flip side. Our women, our men, our police officers, they faithfully don that uniform every day, every night, just like Officer Wren did, to go out and serve this community and do the very best they can with what little they have. I think now everybody sees the honor and the nobility into that, facing a fight that many times seems unwinnable, and they still do it. And you look at somebody, and this should never get lost in the shuffle, you look at somebody like Officer Wren, who spent 22 years in a very violent part of this city. He had plenty of opportunities to go and do something else in his police department, and he chose to stay there and fight the fight. It's officers like him who are saying they need help. Earlier this year, when we had 4 SWAT officers shot on one single incident, do you know what they told us when we showed up at the hospital and asked them what they needed? They said, "Get us help." So we hope and we pray that our citizens will listen to those who are on the front lines. This is going to get worse, and we have to figure out what we're going to do about it. The final thing I'll say is this. For all the discussion that has occurred, and it's been valid and valuable, we have to now talk and act. We have to say what it is that we're going to do and start moving. And frankly, our community should be mad as hell that one of our police officers was gunned down in this city and that countless others are attacked, injured, and assaulted, more than 2 a week now so far this year. It's unacceptable. And it's not going to be until our community says enough is enough that we will start to make a change for the better. So we, again, humbly come before our citizens and ask them to simply honor the request that's been made by the leader of their police department to give him and our officers the chance to be successful. And more importantly, even than that, to go home safely to their families each and every night. With that, I want to turn it over to Chief Hite. Chief, there's a lot of times where, and Bill alluded to it, where many in the public like to perceive that there's always friction between labor and management. And I can tell you, I can't think of a time that we've had better relationships with our chief and our director of public safety than the times that we're in now. We're all pulling in the same direction and trying to get something done here. This is no joke. Lives are at stake, and we've seen that now, time and time again. So, Chief, we want to just thank you for your leadership, and thank you for being brave enough to lay out the facts and tell the citizens the way that this is and what you're up against. And we look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Good afternoon. I think it sums up a lot of what we feel right now. You hear the passion in all of our voices, but I just left a group of young people who were at the scene where Officer Wren lost his life, and they made it very clear to us that they're appreciative of the interest and the investment that was made by him into them. How he got out of his car, how he got a chance to talk to them and made a difference in the community. And how he took that portion the director talks about, that 85% of our budget that we received, and put it to good use. So ladies and gentlemen, we've taken what you've given us as a community and put it to good use. Whether it be an investment in training, an investment in our police officers and their equipment, whether it be the salaries, we put it to good use. And we'll continue to do that in days and weeks to come. However, we do have to talk about what we've done so far, what you've given us. And we've been good stewards of the people's money. We did something that was very unique. At the behest of the director, we started looking at how we dealt with allocation and resources in our department, and how we turned over every nook and cranny, looked between every nook and cranny, and found every dollar, every 15 cents, every dime we could find, and we allocated it back to the purpose of patrol. Patrol is the backbone of the police department. So our young men and women, our officers in patrol, felt that we cared about them. Not only did we do that, we also looked at other systems we collapsed and built bridges around so we can bring in additional partners to help augment what we're doing. IMPD is a very unique group that they share resources across the board. They don't take vacation very often. They spend time with each other when they should be with their families. They give up a lot of precious moments in life to make sure this city's safe. We're just here to tell you that we have done what you've asked us to do, and we'll continue to do that. Yes, the city's under attack. Yes, it was under attack. And yes, in fact, people push back. But I'm here to tell you the men and women of this department are staying ready to continue the good fight. But we need your help. We need the help of the community who knows for a fact when these things occur, who's doing it. We know for a fact that people have information and you come forth and share. One of the things I liked about Officer Wren was he spent 22 years in a profession he loved, but he spent it in patrol, which is the backbone of a department. So he got a chance to know people and put chips in the bank of trust before things happen. And he was able to get information before things occurred. We're now at a point where we have to ask ourselves this question: what is relevant in terms of police services? What are we going to ask you to understand that we have to have a conversation about going forward? What services do you really want from your police officers? What will you expect from them? Was Officer Wren the prototype? I like to think so. If not, what does it look like? And how many of them do we need? How many of them will we have to put in positions to take over where he left off? We have young people in the academy right now, thanks to the hard work of our director of DPS and the deputy director and the counselors here. Glad to see you, sir. Thank you for your help. And all those who participated in this process of assessing where we are, we're thankful for that. But now we have to talk about really going forward. The city population is increasing. We have to be very clear about the message we're sending to those people who want to move in Indianapolis. It's a safe place. It's one of the safest cities in the country. And a lot of the ills that faced other cities have never faced Indianapolis. We're seeing some things we haven't seen before. But we stand ready, willing and able to push back, maintain the gains we've already had, and look forward to future gains with your help. Without further ado, I think we'll entertain questions, Director.
I guess the question is, gentlemen, when we talk about more resources for the department, obviously we're talking dollars and cents.
Right.
There are a couple plans that have been put out there, one of which is the elimination of the homestead property tax credit. There's also the plan, Rick, that you folks outlined, which I think will go to the local option income tax. Is there a preference, or is it the plan that the mayor's put together? Which one is it? Because I'm assuming if you're going to ask the public for more resources, they're entitled to know exactly, okay, how exactly is this you want me to contribute?
I will tell you where the mayor's office and where we stand today. But let me let me back up a little bit and explain how we got to this point. October 2012, I arrived. We were being told that we need additional officers. We have just undertaken the largest downturn in the economy of the United States, with the exception of Great Depression. This city was able to keep its AAA bond rating. This city was able to not lay off officers or civilian personnel, which was a tremendous achievement. However, when we started looking at this, I made the promise and the pledge that we wanted to be as efficient and as effective as possible as an organization. Chief Hite and I sat down, we asked the FOP to be involved, and we reallocated officers. And I said this earlier, and I want to thank the FOP leadership. We reallocated at this time about 116 or more officers, some more in the future, because of their work and involvement in working with us in partnership. Not one grievance, not one complaint from our officers. That is astounding for a department this size. It says a lot about our officers, says a lot about the FOP leadership that was at the table. In October of last year, the chief and I said we have done everything we can with the help of my deputy director, Valerie Washington, and looking at our budget. Your Department of Public Safety and Police Department found enough sustainable funds within its existing budget to hire 50 officers and 40 civilian employees. 50 officers per year going forward. Our attrition rate's been somewhere between 45 and 50 a year. So that gets us right at attrition. We asked for additional money. The mayor, once again, before I arrived here, asked for the elimination of the local homestead tax credit. It's $9 million. $9 million. It's local. It only affects a small portion of individuals. The mayor has been pushing that. He asked for that last year. We did not get it. We did get one-time money for additional 30. Let me put that in context. That means with our 50 and the 30 with the funding, that gives us 80 officers. 60 are in class right now. We'll have 20 more by the end of the year. That's a step in the right direction. What I asked for and I did not receive was sustainable funding for the next few years. If we can get 80 to 100 officers over the next 4 years and we keep our attrition, that's going to be 200 officers at minimum for us. That's important for us, we believe, moving forward. The mayor believes that's important. That's why he's asked for elimination of the homestead tax credit. If council comes to him today, he'll sign that, and we can get on the business of hiring additional officers. I know there'll be debates about how that goes, but let's not lose the fact today that we still want this to be about Officer Wren and his sacrifice and the sacrifice of the men and women. We'll have that debate about finances in the future, but one thing's for sure, the mayor's committed to it, we're committed to it, moving forward, trying to find sustainable financing for the police department.
Assaults on officers that are occurring 2 per week in the last 9 months. We've had 30 police officers shot at, 8 injured, 2 killed. And so if people are afraid to go that way and take on a police department, do you really believe that they would be afraid of mandatory minimum sentencing when they're apparently not afraid to go to prison or not afraid to lose their own lives?
But for one, I believe it is somewhat of a deterrent. I have dealt with criminals before, and I realize that when they see that they've been charged federally, they understand that because they know there's mandatory minimums. We do not have that within the state of Indiana. But I'm not going to say that that's going to keep anyone from going out and attacking an officer or attacking a citizen. That's just simply not the case. It will have some effect. However, the effect is you're taking them off the street for 20 years if we get what we want. 20-year mandatory minimum for violent offenders using a weapon that includes sexual assault. If you cross that line and you brandish a weapon, there has to be severe penalty for that. If that were the case, just 10 years. As you heard from President Owensby, we believe that at minimum 15 to 20 of our homicides would not have occurred this year. We're going to share some more data in the upcoming weeks regarding our victims and our suspects, and you will be astounded by the amount of people that the police department has to arrest time and time again. I like to say, and I believe this, your chief and your police officers are doing a good job arresting people. The bad thing is they have to arrest them numerous times.
We've talked about the minimum mandatory sentences for a while now. What's the pushback from the legislature? Why hasn't this already been done?
First of all, we were listened to at the legislature. We understand that. The bill as it was or had said before this session was that the judges may extend to 5 years, 5 additional years. May. We were looking for shall be 20 years. What we got was maybe 20 years. We don't think that gets us where we need to be. We're optimistic with the 75% new changes that have been made to law that may help, but still in violent, if we're going to be serious about violent crime, we've got to be serious about violent crimes committed with weapons. And I believe we need a mandatory minimum. The chief believes that, the mayor believes that, and I'd like to say our rank and file believe that.
Well, what was the rationale of having that 5 and not the 20 that you requested? You see it every day, you're part of it, you probably know better than they would.
Well, I can't speak for them, but I tell you, we'll be back at session again asking for the shall to be included on the 20 years. We have too many people getting out of prison too soon. We have given examples of individuals that have been sentenced to 16 years in prison for violent felony crimes, only to be released to the streets of Indianapolis after 783 days and being involved in a home invasion on the north side. Officers did their job. I think they were let down.
Troy, $9 million is a big number. That's like monopoly money. I don't know. But consider, let's say we got 500,000 people living in Indianapolis. Is there some magic dollar number? $5 a year on your taxes, homestead credit, $5 a year on the court or whatever. What would be that magic dollar number that you could say to people, what's it worth to you, $5, $10 this year that Officer Wren is alive, or that I got more cops to drive your neighborhood?
Well, we haven't broken it down individually because the homestead tax credit eliminated that does not affect everyone. Now, if you're looking at a tax increase, I'm sure that'll be debated in the future. I have not looked at what that would cost per citizen, but I can tell you that eliminate homestead tax credit, the full extent of that would be $9 million if it's phased in. Remember, it cost us $125,000 per officer. $125,000 per officer. If we're going to try to get an additional 150 to 200, we have to have new revenue. That'll be up to the elected officials to determine that. I know the mayor has given a plan. I think the plan's workable, but at the end of the day, I have to have sustainable money. Where I stand now, because the homestead tax credit was not eliminated, as the mayor had asked for the last 3 years, where I stand now is we're going to hire 80 officers this year. Next year, if I don't get sustainable funding for those additional 30, then we could only hire 20 officers without new money coming in. That's the situation we're in right now. I am certain that's going to change as we move forward.
Director, if I may, we have some of that data. If Rick could rattle it off the top of his head there.
Go ahead.
Abdul, back to your point. It wasn't just the FOP, it is the IMPD Staffing Commission, which I want to stress again was a bipartisan, community involved, as well as subject matter experts involved in that committee, coming to that conclusion after much research. And what they found was a couple of things. One, we lose 50 officers every year due to normal attrition. So to outpace normal attrition, you have to hire more than 50 officers each year. What the chief asked for was 100 officers per year. That means we would make a net gain of 50 each of those years. So over 5 years, you'd have to hire 500 officers, receive a net gain of 250 officers, which would bring us to around the 1,740, 1,750 officer mark, which we all agreed upon. We could be more proactive and actually do community policing in our city with those numbers. It's not perfect, but it's a lot further down the road than where we are now. To do that, the Department of Public Safety confirmed on the record in that meeting that any of the dollars that were recouped from the officers leaving the department during that year due to normal attrition would be reallocated within the police department to hire additional officers. So there's funding that exists for the 50 officers in the dollars that you recoup from the ones that leave. Make sense? To get the 50 additional officers each year, it's going to require nearly $25 million total for the 250. Okay? So to get that, the homestead credit elimination is projected to net about $9 million. That's a big difference from $25 million. So the other step to get the $25 million is the increase of the public safety tax within the local option income tax that you spoke of, Abdul. To do that, the council is already authorized by the state to take that action. They already have that power. They don't have to go to the State House and seek permission. They already have it, and the mayor can sign it. It would require a 0.15% increase to the maximum levy of 0.50. That 0.15% increase nets approximately $15 to $19 million to go to the police department. The nice thing about the public safety tax is those dollars are required to remain in public safety. They can't be spent on something else. That's the deficiency with some of the other proposals that are out there. But if we could get bipartisan agreement from our elected leaders to say, if we compromise and do the homestead credit elimination and the public safety tax and require those dollars to go for this purpose, we can achieve what it is that we're needing, which is the 250 additional officers. And it's sustained funding. Now, what does that mean? Russ, to your point, what that means is to a person making an average of $50,000 a year, they're looking at approximately a $65 tax increase for the year. That relates down to approximately $2.50 a week. That's why you've heard and seen us say, for less than the price of a cup of coffee, I'm sorry, $2.50 every 2 weeks, so it's $1.25 a week. For less than the price of a cup of coffee each week, more, we can get the 500 additional officers we need. So the question becomes, again, we're at this crossroads. Is our community willing to take that on? And I can tell you, when we go into the community, and we've seen it with the director and with the chief, and with Senator Donnelly when he came here and spoke, folks tell us they're willing to pay it. They've just never been asked. And I think we've done a good job of saying we're spending the money that we have now as efficiently as possible. We're coming to you in good faith saying we need this. And then it'll be time for them to choose. But somebody has to act and somebody has to lead.
I have time for one last question.
Chief, when you said the stats about officers that have been attacked, fired upon by suspects and defendants, are you folks at IMPD looking at the way officers are trained to sort of respond in kind? Not saying give people carte blanche permission to use excessive force, but to make it clear to individuals that if you attack an officer, shoot at an officer, they're not just going to sit there and take it.
Well, one of the things I often talk about, this is one of the best tactically trained departments I've seen. But to answer your question, yes, training is always evolving, particularly looking at gun threats and how we address that and also provide additional resources for the officers to do the job. By the way, our officers have taken off the street 870 guns this year alone. The other thing I want to share with you is that the police officers stand ready. As you heard, FOP and labor management are working together. The police department and FOP have a partnership around this whole issue. We know for a fact these are tough times we're talking about, but let's remember that we're in a home where 2 officers lost their lives in a line of duty in this district, the home of David Moore and Officer Perry Went. You're in their home. This is where they worked every day and gave their lives.